What is up, guys? I'm back. Been working a lot over the past month or so getting my picks up on YouTube has not been hasn't been a priority for me. But like I said, I'm back. I'm here with my UFC live Jones versus Matyushenko picks. The card's coming up in a few weeks, and yeah, just thought I'd get back in action, back up on YouTube. First things first, gotta give out some props from UFC 116 and stuff like that. The cards that have happened in the past month. Huge props to Brock Lesnar for not only coming back and beating his diverticulitis, but surviving that first round against Shane Carwin and ultimately sinking in that choke in the second round. So huge props to him for both big recoveries, and to Chris Lieben for fighting 2 times in 2 weeks and sinking in that sick triangle choke in the fight with Yoshihiro Akiyama. So I gotta give him a lot of respect for that, for getting 2 wins in 2 weeks. That you just don't see that at this point in the UFC. So props to both of those guys. And without further ado, my picks for UFC on versus 2, Jones versus Matyushenko. On the undercard, we've got Rob Kimmins fighting Steve Steinbess. 2 guys I don't know a lot about, but I went ahead and picked Kimmins to win by choke in this one. Again, 2 guys I just don't know anything about, so I'm not going to go too into detail on that one. Next fight up was Charles Olivier versus Darren Elkins. Again, 2 guys I know really nothing about. Did a little bit of research, and I'm going with Charles Olivier to win by unanimous decision. Next fight up is Thiago Tavares fighting Wilmy Frere. Tavares was supposed to fight Melvin Guillard back at UFC 114. Pulled out due to a shoulder injury, but he's back in action now. He's fighting Frere, who's making his UFC debut, and I've got Tavares win by arm lock. He's got good jiu-jitsu, so yeah, I'm going with him by arm lock on that one. Next up we got Mike Macenzio versus Brian Stan. Stan's making his middleweight debut. He's fought a few times at light heavyweight. He's cutting down to middleweight for this one, and Macenzio's got great jiu-jitsu. So I'm going with him by choke in this fight. Next fight, James Irvin versus Igor Parkazak. I probably butchered that, but I don't really care. Irvin, in his last fight, fought at middleweight and got beat by Alessio Sakara due to TKO after he got hit in the eye. He thought he got poked, but he just ended up catching a punch right to the eye, and because he had asked for time to recover, they ended up giving Sakara the win by TKO, and that was just a couple minutes in the first round. So first off, he didn't take a lot of damage in that fight, and he's not cutting back down to middleweight for this fight. So I think Irvin's going to take this by KO in the first round. Just going to run him over. Next fight up is DeMarcus Johnson versus Matt Riddle. Riddle is 4-1. He's all 3 of his wins in the UFC have been, or all 4 wins have been in the UFC have been by unanimous decision, and he lost once by guillotine choke. I think it was to Greg Soto. I could be completely off there too, but I know he's lost once. And DeMarcus Johnson, he was a runner-up in the Ultimate Fighter 9, lost to James Wilkes, and he's looked pretty good in his last 2 fights since then. He beat Leonard Garcia. No, Edgar Garcia. Leonard Garcia is the guy that fought Chan Sung Jung, but Edgar Garcia by a nice triangle choke back at UFC 107. It was a great back and forth fight up to that point in the first round, and he caught Garcia with an up kick as Garcia was standing over him and cinched up a nice triangle choke. And he beat Brad Blackburn in his last fight, beat him up pretty good. So I'm going to go with DeMarcus Johnson, unanimous decision in this fight. And the last fight on the undercard is Jacob Volkman versus Paul Kelly. And, first things first, Paul Kelly's from the UK, and there's about 3 fighters from the UK that I actually like, and Kelly's not one of them. And Jacob Volkman is a wrestler from Minnesota, and I'm a wrestler from Minnesota. So for obvious reasons, I'm going to have to go with Jacob Volkman to win this fight, and I think he's going to win by unanimous decision. All right, now up to the main card. I think we have 4 very good fights here on the main card, especially for a free card. A lot of these would do very well, even on a pay-per-view. So first fight, Tyson Griffin versus Takanori Gomi. Gomi was supposed to fight Joe Stevenson. Stevenson got hurt while training, so Tyson Griffin stepped in to face Gomi, and I have absolutely no problem with this. Tyson Griffin is one of my favorite fighters. I said that back in my rant before UFC 115. He's coming off that loss to Evan Dunham, but I think he's going to come back and do very well against Gomi. I think he matches up pretty well with him. Gomi's coming off a loss to Kenny Florian, where he basically just got out-jabbed on the feet, then taken down and submitted in the third round. But Tyson Griffin is basically Joe Stevenson, except younger, stronger, and with better takedowns and takedown defense. So if he wants to stand and bang with Gomi, I think he'll be able to hold his own because he can take a punch. I mean, he's fought some tough guys. Frankie Edgar, Sean Shirk. He fought and knocked out Uriah Faber 4 or 5 years ago. Took some huge punches in that one before getting the knockout himself. So if he wants to stand and bang with Gomi, that should make for a very exciting fight. But if he wants to take it to the ground, I think he'll be able to take it to the ground and control the fight there. So I've got Tyson Griffin winning a unanimous decision. Next fight up is a welterweight fight, Jake Ellenberger versus John Howard. This should be a very exciting fight. Both these guys are, up and comers, still young, very explosive, and for some reason, something is just telling me, I don't know if it's my gut or what, is telling me Jake Ellenberger is going to win this fight by choke. And so that's the pick that I'm going with, but I know for a fact that it could end in a knockout by either Ellenberger or Howard. But something's just telling me Ellenberger by choke. So I'm going with that one. No questions asked. And the co-main event is Yushin Okami versus Mark Munoz. These guys both have great wrestling. Good striking. Just like to run guys over. So they're gonna, I expect fireworks for this fight. And not only is this great because it's a free fight and these guys are both very good, it's giving Okami some exposure on a main card of a UFC card because he's 7-2 in the UFC. He's had 9 fights, and 6 of them have been on the undercard. His three main card fights have been a win over Evan Tanner, a loss to Rich Franklin, and a win over Mike Swick. So for a guy with 7 UFC wins to only be on the main card 3 times, it's just, that's terrible. This is a guy who's lost to Chael Sonnen, who is, now fighting for the title. So he deserves a lot more respect than he's getting. And I think he's going to come out and just outclass Munoz on the feet, grapple with him if he has to, and pull out the unanimous decision. And the main event of the evening, John Bones Jones versus Vladimir the Janitor Matyushenko. John Bones Jones, he's still got a ton of hype. And, this is probably going to be the last time we see him on a free card. I think he's going to start being on pay-per-views after this. And, Vladimir Matyushenko, he's definitely a legitimate opponent for Jones. He was former IFL light heavyweight champion. Definitely a tough opponent. He's like 22-2 or 24-2. He's won like 11 or 12 straight fights. So he's legit. He's a very tough veteran. But at the same time, I think he's just going to be another guy that Jones clinches up and ragdolls and beats up on the ground and knocks out or wins by TKO in the first round. So that's what I'm going with, Jones. TKO at 3 or 4 minutes in the first round. So yeah, those are my picks. It's nice to be able to have time to be able to do this again. So feel free to leave comments or responses telling me what you think your picks are. Tell me how wrong I am. And I should have my UFC 117 picks up shortly too. So yeah, have a good one.